Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo. Bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in this mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, CastBox, Audible, Player FM. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Today we have two wonderful guests. We're calling this the Tooth episode. First up, Dr. Ben Miraglia. He is here to talk to us about his product and service. It's called Tooth Pillow. This is a fascinating conversation, and it is the only time I have ever gotten emotionally angry. Not at Dr. Ben, but at some of the information that he shared with us. You want to listen to this episode. You want to listen to Dr. Ben. I bet you may even get a little frustrated and angry, too. Again, not at Dr. Ben, but at some of the information that he's sharing with us. Also, later in the show, Leah Sipis is rejoining us to celebrate Miriam's magical creature files, the truth about the Tooth Fairy. Hey, families, would you like to share a miracle with your kids? At the Wolf Conservation Center, hope was fading. The endangered Mexican wolves dreamed of a pup, but none had come. Until one tiny miracle changed everything. Meet Trumpet, a real-life wolf pup whose incredible birth brought joy, hope, and a lesson in conservation. Trumpet the Miracle Wolf, written by Leocadia George, is a heartwarming true story that will inspire your whole family. Teach your kids the power of hope, love, and protecting endangered species. Get your copy today and join the wild adventure. Hey, my friends, here's something to think about. What if mistakes weren't something to fear, but something to celebrate? In It's Okay Not to Know by Brenda Doe, young readers meet Bink, a lovable little monster who worries they're not good enough when they struggle or make mistakes. But then, Bink discovers a powerful truth. Every uh-oh is an opportunity. Every question is a chance to grow. And every child deserves to know perfection isn't what makes you special. Curiosity, courage, and self-love do. A must-read for parents, teachers, and anyone who wants to help kids build resilience and confidence. Get your copy of It's Okay Not to Know by Brenda Doe today, because learning begins when we stop fearing the unknown. Join us right now from Ridgefield in the state of Connecticut. Our guest is here today to celebrate something called Tooth Pillow. Please welcome to the show Dr. Ben Miraglia. Hey, Dr. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jed. Thank you for having me today.
I'm delighted to have you on. I am so intrigued with the name Tooth. The only time I've ever connected teeth with pillows is when I lost them, and I can't be losing any more teeth.
Yes. The Tooth Pillow, it's a company. It's an affectionate name. Basically, we're using guidance appliance and myofunctional therapy, a few things to help kids grow their jaws earlier. And the name Tooth Pillow kind of was originated because you're talking to children here. And since they're little, well, your head has a pillow when you go to bed. Your teeth should have a pillow when they go to bed because you wear a little device when you go to sleep. It's soft and comfortable. We refer to it as a tooth pillow. The company ended up getting named that.
Fascinating. So I have two grown kids right now who, like every kid these days, had orthodontics, and one of my kids is still very much making sure that they're all straight and pretty, and one isn't.
Uh-huh.
That's what happened. But so I was really with my daughter, who is amazing in caring for her teeth. When she was going in for the orthodontia, it didn't seem to me like she needed it. Her teeth were straight and everything, but the doctor was saying I think, as I recall, her jaw wasn't growing correctly or something like that.
Fair enough. That's what the traditional model is, that the kids will go in between 11 and 12 years old and then get braces. And that has been the traditional model for, generations. But the teeth are really a symptom. And so what you see in the teeth, their positioning and the way the bite comes together, the teeth are a symptom and braces treat the symptom. So sure, you can have braces to get your teeth straight. The tiny problem is you're treating the symptom, not the cause. Braces make your teeth straight, but when you stop wearing your retainer, they drift back. Relapse is the word we use. That's very common. So most people who stop wearing their retainer will have their teeth shift, and then they'll right away look to either do braces again when they see that it's, in a bad spot, or they'll go get clear aligners today. They can get aligners now, but you can keep doing it over and over and over if you only treat the symptom. So treating the symptom over and over and over, that's kind of a bad pattern. Is there a way to treat the cause? And it turns out if the teeth are the symptom, the real problem is the jaws are underdeveloped. So smaller jaws give you the crowded teeth and the bad bite. So we prefer to address the problem earlier, but in the category of the cause, which means let's get the jaws growing a little bigger. If we can get the jaws growing in a little bigger, your teeth will go where they belong and they'll be more stable. So we focus on early treatment of the jaws or the foundation.
How does one grow a jaw?
So the most fascinating thing is that your tongue is designed to grow your jaws. So when our tongue, it's the primary muscle involved with growing the jaws early. When the tongue is resting properly, functioning properly, basically doing its job correctly, it is what promotes proper and full jaw growth and development through the early childhood years so that all the teeth can go where they belong. But when the tongue is not resting in a proper spot or functioning properly, all of a sudden the jaws don't grow as well. And if the jaws don't grow as well, then we get the crowded teeth and the bad bites. But more than that, if the jaws don't grow as well, we start to breathe poorly. It does add up that we need the full jaw growth to breathe well through our nose. Part of nasal breathing, which really every human being is an obligate nasal breather, we need to breathe through our nose for optimal health. Mouth breathing is unhealthy. But if the jaws are growing, let's say, poorly, it does make it more difficult to breathe through the nose well. And then we kind of compensate for not being able to breathe through our nose by breathing through our mouth. And that adds fuel to a fire that's already burning now. Mouth breathing, combined with the tongue muscle not doing its job correctly, we end up with jaws that are too small. The tongue.
I'm being blown away here. I'm being blown. So first, let's talk because I've actually been accused of being a mouth breather a couple of times. I don't think they were referring to the size of my jaw. What is so bad about breathing through a mouth?
Okay, so big difference between the nose breathing and the mouth breathing patterns. Our nose was built to filter, warm, humidify, accelerate, and add ingredients to the air coming in. So our nose was perfectly built so that as the air travels through our nose, warmed, filtered, humidified, accelerated, and added ingredients before it gets to the lung. The preparation of the air is what allows the lung to do its job right. So we have to think about fuel. I'm going to use the word fuel, like you put fuel in your car. Fueling a human being, there's three basic fuels. Air, we have to breathe. We have to drink, we need water. And then we have to eat food. Those are like the three basic fuels. I know the sun is also a fuel, but let's just focus on the three. Now, the air coming in, when that fuel goes through the nose, it gets into the lung perfectly. It allows the lung to do its job perfectly, make the exchanging. Like the lung has to bring the good stuff in and get the bad stuff out. It's an exchanger. That can only happen with the nose breathing at an optimal level. As soon as you breathe through your mouth, you can physically breathe in and out of your mouth, but it doesn't mean it's healthy. The mouth does not prepare the air. It doesn't warm it, filter it, humidify it, accelerate it, or add any ingredients to it. So the air coming in the mouth is considered less than. But when it gets in the lung can't do its job optimally. Now we're getting a different exchange rate. We're not going to get all of the best stuff in and all of the bad stuff out. It's going to be a different rate. So the way I like to give parents the analogy is if you've got a high performance race car and it's going to get on the track with an opportunity for peak performance and win a race, you have to put in the right fuel. And that will be a higher octane, a specialized fuel for that high performance race car. Okay, that's nose breathing. The child is your high performance race car, and we want it at peak performance, able to win its race. But we have to nose breathe for it. You take that same high performance sports car and go put in a low level, low octane gasoline, like a regular gasoline for a car. It will not have peak performance. It will make it around the track. It will not peak perform, but it will also break down sooner. That's mouth breathing for a child. Mouth breathing is bad gasoline, bad fuel coming into a child.
This is fascinating. There are a lot more questions that I have, but why am I'm almost 100 years old. I'm a fairly intelligent person. Why is it that I'm only hearing about this now?
Yes. So it's a very fair question. And so it turns out we have medicine and dentistry. Because dentistry was separated out and has its own field, medicine doesn't do a whole lot of study of the mouth. So we put them aside. Now, dentistry is about the mouth, but its focus has really been the teeth. So while dentistry is a wonderful profession and has an incredible, amount of good to offer, it is that our history is focused on the teeth and not as much on the jaw development. So that trend is changing, and more recently, people are more focused on the earlier development of the jaws as opposed to just waiting for the teeth later. So there is a turn in the kind of tide right now where we're starting to pay more attention to the early jaw growth and development, as opposed to just waiting until the child is 11 or 12 and really just staring at the teeth all the time. So it's been a tooth-focused approach that kind of took our eyes off the ball when it came to jaw growth and development, related to poor breathing, because poor breathing makes you unhealthy. Downstream, there are a lot of symptoms that pop into a child from mouth breathing. So we're working on it. And that's part of the reason we're talking today is awareness. So parents know there are things we can help you with earlier. We don't have to wait till 12 to have braces anymore.
Wow. A couple of, probably a decade and a half back, I became aware of the fact that a lot of the stuff that's going on in your mouth can cause old people like me heart attacks and all that kind of stuff, which, again, knowledge blew me away. And again, like, why are we only hearing about this now? That the idea that medicine and dentistry were separated out, now I can understand why that happened, why we're not getting the knowledge. But the other question comes up is, so why did we break this up? Why didn't one of you smart doctors realize this earlier?
Yes. And so us here in the dental profession know that the mouth is connected to the body. Mm-hmm. And we're in the process of, building the bridge back because, medicine is really whole body except for the mouth. It's been pulled out. It's separated. Dentistry is fully separated. So I think we're working on that, and we do collaborate with the medical community to kind of build those bridges back to deal with collaborative care that is whole health related. So we are working on that. That is certainly one of the goals, is to make sure that all of the healthcare industry is collaboratively working for the benefit of every patient, not just the children, but every patient's well-being.
Can we blame this on the insurance companies? I don't. I mean, they seem like everybody's blaming for everything these days.
Oh my goodness! I guess it's easy to blame someone, but this one, it's hard to pin the blame on any one person or a group.
Okay, all right. So again, tooth pillow. Let's talk about that. What is it? My 3-year-old, my 4-year-old.
Sure.
Says, hey, the kid's breathing through his mouth. Maybe we can help this out. What's
yes.
first?
So Tooth Pillow is a new company. We're about 3 years old, but as far as being a new company, we use techniques that have been in dentistry for decades. So nothing we're doing is new. The techniques we're utilizing have been around for decades. And the whole point about Tooth Pillow was putting together techniques that were used in offices, but to deliver it remotely to solve an access problem. So when we're thinking about dentistry and the focus being on the teeth, there are very few doctors like myself around the country that do growth and development early from the age of 3 on. So most of dentistry is focused on teeth, and that's wonderful. It's helpful. But we're few and far between where parents could find a dental office that would say, help their child at 3, 4, or 5 redirect their jaw growth and development. That's a rarity. So there's no access anywhere. Now, in my own office, I've been doing this for 2 decades. So for 2 decades, we've been treating kids between 3 and 12 with basically 3 things. It's a combination of 3 things that make Tooth Pillow. Number one is nasal hygiene. And it sounds like, oh, well, can't you do that on your own? Well, yes, but nasal hygiene needs to be taught and also introduced to products that are natural, that a child can do several times a day. And if you think about kids today, they're always like stuffy and runny and unclean noses. Nasal hygiene has gone by the wayside. We don't really practice nasal hygiene very much, just as a society in general, especially in kids. But having a stuffy nose means we're contributing to mouth breathing, which is unhealthy for them. So we teach a lot of nasal hygiene techniques to get that nose clean and empty, and using some natural sprays helps. Number two, we use what we call guidance appliances. Guidance appliances are basically, if you held one and looked at it, it would look like a football mouth guard. You'd say, oh, my child could play football in this. Meanwhile, it's soft and comfortable, but it's the design that redirects the breathing and musculature. So when a child is asked to wear a guidance appliance, we're looking for 1 hour a day of wear time plus bedtime. And so when they wear their guide, it redirects to the nose breathing. So they do nasal hygiene first. Let's clean our nose out. Let's put our guide in our mouth. Now, while the guide is in, they're going to start retraining the nasal breathing pattern. It's very difficult to take a mouth breathing child and make them nose breathe just by telling them, close your mouth, breathe through your nose, close your mouth, stop mouth. That doesn't work because your brain kind of knows the air's not flowing well, so it lets your mouth hang open by itself. We got to get that guide in there, and it starts promoting a retraining of the nasal breathing. But also when the guide is in there, it delivers the tongue into a proper spot. We need the tongue in the roof of the mouth at resting, but when it swallows, we need the tongue to swallow in a particular pattern, which is up to the vault. It has to go high. We can't have our tongue low and going back and forth or side to side. That won't promote jaw growth and development. So what the guide does is it basically promotes the tongue to have proper rest position, but also proper function. Basically, when your guide is in, your tongue can only swallow correctly. A correct swallowing pattern helps your jaws grow. Last but not least, when you pop the guide in your mouth, it pushes away the lips and cheeks. It pushes them out a little bit. Getting them out of the way takes them out of a swallowing pattern, which inhibits jaw growth and development. We're basically getting the inside strong, the tongue strong and where it belongs, and the outside getting out of the way so that we can grow wider and forward. The pathway to grow wider and forward is that my tongue is working for me and my lips and cheeks are not working against me. Then you start going this way. So the guidance appliance gets our breathing and musculature balance. And then the body takes over because it is our jaw muscles that are supposed to grow our jaws, but now they're not. They're dysfunctional. And now we have to step in and get this going in the right direction. So we have the nasal hygiene. We've got the guides. The third item is what's called myofunctional therapy. Myofunctional therapy, a longer version would be orofacial myofunctional therapy. Basically, that is like physical therapy for the head and neck. You are really reworking the breathing, the musculature, and the posture of a child so that all of the muscles that are involved with the head and neck could be properly balanced to, again, promote jaw growth and development, better breathing, better sleeping, all these good things. These are three things in the office we've been doing for a couple of decades, and others like me. Well, a few of us years ago got together and decided, hey, there's very little access to parents out there for kids. Can we build a model to do this remotely? And that's the starting point how Tooth Pillow was born. So all of a sudden you have a group of people getting together to say, well, maybe the patient doesn't have to come to our office all the time for these visits. Plus, we're either hours or states away because not everybody's doing this. Given the little bit of access, we built Tooth Pillow to deliver everything I was describing, techniques that have been around for decades, to a child remotely. A parent could find us in the middle of nowhere, go to our website, and then click on Is My Child a Candidate? And they'll send us information with photographs. And they'll upload it. I can screen that child. When we screen the child, we know, ooh, this is a good candidate for remote treatment. They could be accepted into Tooth Pillow. We would be sending them what they need. We have an app to engage them, and we stay connected to them daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. We're working with them, interacting with them to make sure they're doing the right things at home. And now they can be treated with the remote pathway. The myofunctional therapy gets done via Zoom, just like we're working here. We can have a myofunctional therapist jump on with a child and do a one-on-one session where they teach them the exercises to do with the jaw muscles so we can get the growth and development there. So basically, Tooth Pillow is remote growth and development treatment, and we're combining things that have been around for decades in dentistry.
It sounds fascinating, and also giving kids access to something that it sounds like they really need. I'm curious because we hear a lot of alternative therapies for kids who might have that little bit of extra energy, and their parents are saying, "No, I don't want to put my kid on a psychoactive drug that we really haven't done enough studies on kids. But I know, and I know that those alternatives are very successful when the kids are compliant, which is, the big deal. How compliant are the kids in your program?
Oh, yeah. So we enjoy a lot of compliance because, number one, there's a nice amount of informed consent at the beginning. So the parent understands, especially in our tooth pillow model, this is remote because you're hours away or states away from an office. So if you're going to be at home, and we have an entire support team, we're almost 50 members strong in our support team that handle all the different regions and engage the parents to give them support. But we're not interested in just having people sign up to try it. We would like them to know that this is a daily event. You want to wear it for an hour a day and wear it to bed and do your exercises, and then you get good results. So the analogy that's fair to say is going to the gym. You can sign up and have your credit card membership getting dinged every month, but what good is it if you don't go to the gym? Right. Now at the gym, once a week or once a month, maybe the results aren't coming. But when you go regularly to the gym and you have a trainer, you could understand this is going to be better for me. It's the same pattern. If you're doing the regular routine, and this is a daily basis, that hour commitment plus every night, we see wonderful results. And it's been in my office 2 decades, but others like me also decades. So there's decades of kids being treated successfully this way. And it is the number one issue. With compliance, it's an excellent opportunity. Without compliance, well, they can't help you if it's not in your mouth, and you don't do the work. It doesn't happen.
I'm curious. We've had a number of psychologists turned children's author on the show, and they're very willing to Zoom with their patients, but they can't unless they're licensed in each individual state. They can't do it. Is that an issue for you?
Well, it's actually very accurate what you're saying. And so we follow those same rules. We have 70 dentists right now that manage every state. So we do have representation of all 50 states. Myself, I'm licensed in about a dozen right now, but we have all of the states covered. We have a licensed doctor in the state that is trained to follow and track and be what we call a treatment provider. So we have a support team that manages all of the children, and we also have a doctor representing each state. So yes, tooth pillow, we have a doctor licensed in the state you're in, because we do have to have a license in the state the child is in to treat them. So yes, we have that covered. We're happy and proud of that because we didn't want to cut anybody out of this opportunity. And so, we're a big fan of making sure everybody has access to this, and at the very least learning about it to make a decision whether or not it's good, a good match for their family.
Excellent. Excellent. A lot of the things you're talking about make me think of some of my friends who get the sleep apnea and they're snoring and is this somehow related?
Yeah. So sleep apnea is like the worst breathing you could have. When you're going to bed, you're holding your breath for 10 seconds or more multiple times, and it adds up to a score. And when you get the right score, you could have mild, moderate, or severe sleep apnea. But that's based on the number of times you're holding your breath more than 10 seconds every hour. So when you're getting these sleep apnea diagnoses, we'll call that, since it's the worst breathing you could be, sleep apnea, we're going to assign that like calling it a stage 4 disease. Sleep apnea is like a stage 4 disease. Well, you know what that makes mouth breathing stage 1? Mouth breathing is the stage 1 disease. And so when a child begins to show the signs of mouth breathing, which is really just by vision, you can see whether the lips are together or not. Now, a child's mouth does not have to be hanging open, chin dragging on the floor. I know when we say mouth breathing, we're thinking, walking around with the chin. It doesn't have to be. It only has to be lip separation. If the lips are separate, the air's leaking in and out, and then that changes how the lungs function and everything downstream because we're interfering with the proper fueling of the human. Well, lip separation or mouth breathing, that's our stage 1 problem. If you leave it alone long enough and don't address it, or you treat the symptoms, it can grow up to be a sleep apnea condition. Nobody wants to wait to treat stage 4. It doesn't make any sense. You would never visit a doctor and say, oh, guess what? We diagnosed you at stage 1 disease. Come back when you're stage 4. Let's wait. Right. That's ridiculous. Well, the difference here is that we need more people to understand how unhealthy mouth breathing is and the symptoms that are downstream from it and how it's really affecting the child's sleep, because mouth breathing does affect the quality of sleep. You don't have to have sleep apnea. In fact, most kids don't. They're so young, they haven't got there yet. You need to progress to sleep apnea. So we see in the research only about 3 to 5% of children will have a sleep apnea diagnosis. And that's a low number, but most of the kids are going to be in the mouth breathing category and have some sort of mouth breathing or snoring going on. So they're stage 1. They'll get to stage 4 if we don't help them out. So we want the jaw growth because it's the upper jaw that gives us the ability to breathe well through our nose. Our upper jaw frames out the nose. So bigger the upper jaw, better breathing through the nose. When both jaws are bigger, you have more room for your tongue too, because the tongue is also a big component of this. How much room does it have? Smaller jaws, the tongue is wedged back. When the tongue is wedged back, the air can't get behind it. Mm-hmm. So we have breathing problems thanks to our anatomy being too small. Small jaws, poor breathing, poor sleeping, unhealthy child. And the symptoms are endless.
Yeah. Wow. I love the analogy of, treating it early so we don't get to stage 4.
Yes. We would much rather treat the child early and avoid treating the adult that has sleep apnea, because that's a difficult spot to be. Treating sleep apnea as an adult is a handful. And it's late. We're getting in late. So the choices are different and it's much harder and it's possible and there are options. But we would much rather address the children earlier and avoid that future for them. Who wouldn't? I mean, it seems obvious, but it's less common today, but we're working towards correcting that.
Yeah. And those of you who are listening, the doctor can tell you that I've been very, very aware of keeping my mouth shut and breathing through my nose during this conversation. I don't want to get yelled at. So
I hear you.
What's the process that a family, if they're noticing their kids are mouth breathing, or if they're just concerned, they're hearing this and they think, maybe I should check this out?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is parents should observe their children a little bit. Some of the things they might already know, some they won't, but I'll give you just a few little points that, what are you looking for? Well, take a peek at your child during the day and kind of look, are the lips sealed or are they separated? Mouth breathing, lip separation. If you notice during the day or at night your child has their lips separated or maybe even does some snoring already, that's a pretty telltale sign that they're having poor breathing while sleeping. Some of the symptoms that go with that are related to, and you mentioned before, behavior. It turns out the behavior during the day is a direct reflection of the quality of sleeping at night. And the quality of sleep can be affected by the manner of your breathing. So the mouth breathing child, or worse, mouth breathing, snoring, or apnea is the worst one, but mouth breathing or snoring while sleeping is a pathway to disrupt a proper sleep cycle. And if we disrupt a child's quality of sleep, they will have the behavior downstream. There's plenty of research already showing that. Poor quality of sleep, poor behavior patterns during the day. And that's the ADHD category that we touched upon a moment ago. Behavior is definitely correlated to the manner in which a child is breathing and sleeping. And if you look at the symptom list that comes with that ADHD diagnosis, a lot of those symptoms are also symptoms that are seen from sleep deprivation. The worse the quality of sleep, the more we see those symptoms. So much like you and your audience, where maybe we don't jump right to the pharmaceutical, where it's, untested and unproven, and treating, by the way, also treating a symptom, not the cause. Mm-hmm. We're a big fan of getting that child as natural a growth process as possible to avoid that future. And so we want to restore that breathing pattern, because a child who is nose breathing through the night beautifully is less likely and has a less percentage chance of being diagnosed with those symptoms. We want the sleep quality back.
I got to tell you, Doc, this has been a fun conversation for me, and we're not done, but I just have to tell you, I'm really angry right now because, the over-medication of kids and, in dealing with behavior issues, to think that there are kids out there who are being put on these very powerful psychoactive drugs that don't need to be, because we haven't taken a look at their sleep.
That's correct. I'm looking at their sleeping patterns and some of the symptoms that parents might be struggling with. If you look at the children, well, we already know if you're seeing behavioral issues, this is something you want to look into. But bedwetting is a big symptom. Nightmares, night terrors, night sweating, waking up at night, restless sleep, thrashing around at night, grinding your teeth at night. These are all symptoms of very poor sleeping quality, and it's all related to the breathing pattern. So the mouth breathing leads to these symptoms that we see during the nighttime, that struggle sleeping well, having all of the things we're talking about. But there are other things now, because that child's going to wake up and get into the daytime. Well, we're going to have the hyperactivity. We're going to have the behavior. We're also going to have we're going to have the highs and lows because we call it dysregulated. The highs are the hyperactivity and the aggressive and all kinds of social outbursting, but then there's the drop, the fatigue and the tiredness and the sleepiness. And we have kids who have episodes of this high-low because they're not regulated well from the poor night's sleep. But also we have ear infections, digestive issues, headaches. All of these things are related to poor breathing and sleeping quality. All can be traced back to smaller jaws. So while parents might notice their kids are mouth breathing, one of the things you can look at when you have those baby teeth, you know, those beautiful baby teeth from 3 to 5 years old, they're supposed to have very big gaps between them all. They're not supposed to be together. When the baby teeth are together with no space, the jaws are too small. And so when you go back in the dental research way back when, there was someone who knew with the research, how wide should the gaps be between baby teeth to know that the jaws are growing well? It turns out the width of a nickel, and a nickel is a thick coin. So we know our coins, we have a dime, a quarter, a nickel, a penny. A nickel, if a nickel can fit between the baby's teeth, all of them, you have someone whose jaws are growing well. We don't see kids like that anymore. So kids are smaller. The jaws are going to be smaller. The teeth are going to be crowded. Most kids are going to get braces. And most kids won't have room for their wisdom teeth. Those are going to get taken out because the jaws never got big enough to have 32. They got to have 28 or less. Well, any parent, and I would, the word of caution is please don't get a nickel and try to put it in your child's tooth. Because, you know, that child's going to open for 1 second. Then when you put the nickel there, it's going to be like a parking meter and it'll go right in there. We'll have a disaster on our hands. So we don't physically use a nickel. What you can do is look at a nickel and think about its thickness. And then just look at your child's teeth. Does my child have a nickel fitting between those teeth? The answer is going to be no. You can see it at a distance. Or if your child is from 6 to 8 or 9, they have a mixture of teeth. They got some new ones in there. Are they already crowded? Because if they're already crowded, we already know the jaws are too small. So a parent would notice by just the teeth alone. Baby teeth, no space, and the new teeth coming, crowded and not fitting. But then there are the symptoms. You know, the behavior, the bedwetting, the ear infections, the digestive issues, waking at night, night sweats, night terrors, thrashing around. You know, these kids are really struggling with all the ENT issues, ear, nose, throat, and lung infections repeatedly because of the mouth breathing, bringing in the bugs and not being filtered or cleaned out of the nose. So the kids who mouth breathe more often than nose breathe will have higher rates of the ear, nose, throat, and lung infections going on. Large tonsils and adenoids, that's a big one. So the perspective is important there because the large tonsils and adenoids didn't cause your breathing problem. Your breathing problem caused the large tonsil and adenoid. The child had smaller jaws first, became a mouth breather. It's the mouth breathing that grows the tonsils and adenoids. So the mouth breathing becomes that irritation for the tonsils and adenoids to get bigger. And then what does that do? It makes the breathing worse. So the smaller jaws are really the inferno that's causing this child to be unhealthy. And as they mouth breathe, the tonsils and adenoids get irritated and get bigger. And as they get bigger, it's dumping another gallon of gasoline into this inferno. So when we talk about these things and treating the child early, our goal is to get in there. And like you were mentioning, maybe we could avoid some medications. So I can give you the 2 decades in my own practice. The kids who meet us before getting the medications, if we can get them involved with tooth pillow and get the guides in myofunctional therapy, if we get the jaws growing and they breathe better, sleep better, their symptoms fade away. They never graduate to the medicine. The other category is, well, what if the kid comes in, they're 8, 9, or 10, they already have it? Because I'm seeing the kids medicated as young as 5 and 4 now coming in. If they come in and they already have it, if we get the jaws growing better and they breathe better, sleep better, their symptoms start to fade away, then they can reduce and then eliminate the medication. So that has been our pattern in my office. The next level would be tonsils and adenoids. They're big. I understand they're big. But we don't want to take those out first because if you take them out first, you're treating the symptom. That was not the cause. It was a symptom that made things worse. It turns out most kids who take their tonsils and adenoids out, they're going to grow back because they remain mouth breathing. The ultimate problem was the jaws are too small. When your jaws are too small and you take out the contents, the adenoids and tonsils, you're still mouth breathing afterwards and that irritates them. They swell right back up. So we get to see them grow again. Whereas the child who is mouth breathing, if we get involved and we grow their jaws, they breathe through their nose. When they start breathing through the nose, the tonsils and adenoids have a chance to shrink. So our pattern in our office has always been, let's give the child a chance to get back to nasal breathing with good jaw growth and development, allow the tonsils and adenoids to shrink and avoid the surgery to remove them. That's been the case more often. So even though we see several hundred kids a year, only 1 out of 100 has to have them out. The rest of the kids, when they get to breathing again, they'll shrink for them. So we try to avoid that.
Wow. you've blown me away, Doc. So lots of things to look for that will lead us over to Tooth Pillow. We mentioned insurance earlier. What's this going to cost a family, a ballpark idea, and is it something that's covered by insurance?
Sure. So ballpark fees, it's probably right around $19.95 for a parent to have tooth pillow treatment remotely for 2 years. And it covers 24 months of treatment with the guides they need, and the myofunctional therapy can be at a base level, or it can be an upgrade to a fully custom one-on-one session, which I think has another fee associated with it around $1,000. Mm-hmm. So I know on our website, I believe the numbers are published. So I'm giving you a quick quote on a general number. I don't really know exact numbers, but the best thing for a parent to do is visit our website. Toothpillow.com has a lot of information in there. And that's where the tab is my child a candidate, where they can actually submit their child to learn about, opportunities, because most kids can be treated remotely, but some can't. Every now and then I can see a child that I know needs to go to an office because they're too severe, and we would guide them to a proper office. That's the other thing we like to help do, is make sure the child goes to an office that knows about early growth and development, as opposed to what happens to some kids who are more severe is they start taking teeth out. And we're always trying to avoid that, because removing teeth is basically saying, oh, I'm just going to accept the smaller jaws and let's fit the teeth that can in and take the ones that can't out. We're not a fan of taking teeth out. It makes the breathing worse. So we definitely want to make sure we get as much room for the tongue as possible and avoid that. So parents, visit the website. Is my child a candidate? You learn a lot through that. And then in the end, it'll be a choice, but you would absolutely know the fees of each of these things before doing anything or accepting anything.
Well, I got to tell you, $19.95 is a whole heck of a lot less money than I spent on my daughter's braces.
Yes, braces have a significant fee associated with them. There's a lot of visits involved. You go every month, for years it can happen. So you're going to have a fee associated with the time and the materials to do this. And I understand that, but it doesn't change the fact that it's treating the symptoms late.
Right.
Whereas going after the jaw growth and development earlier, yes, there's an opportunity for the kids who are compliant and the families that are doing invested work with it to do very well. In my own office, we see 1 out of 4 children avoid braces altogether, which is very nice that 1 out of 4 kids going into this will not have the braces. But the 75%, I know that leaves 3 out of 4 behind. It seems like a lot. But I can tell you from my own office over 2 decades, those children only get 6 to 8 months of braces when they're 13. So even if they put in a fair effort, when you turn 13, if you see the teeth aren't quite perfect, you've already got the breathing. You've already got the foundation right. Just to line up the teeth is the simple part. So having 6 months or 8 months in braces, or even 6 or 8 months of aligners today, is a small kind of second part to finishing the teeth. But that's what the difference is. We work on the foundation early. That's breathing and musculature. We work on the teeth later. So yeah, sure, there's a percentage of kids that will need some attention when they're 13 to finish the job of the teeth. Earlier, we need the jaw size to get your breathing, sleeping, and healthy child back. Get your healthy child first, worry about the teeth later. But the good news is that should be a very small project. We're not supposed to be doing this early and then have braces for 3 years later. Like that wouldn't make sense. This reduces that or eliminates it.
So last question. What about a guy, they had to take the wisdom teeth out, couple of crooked teeth because, parents couldn't afford orthodontia. Anything that, any help for that person?
Yes, there are opportunities for adults. And so while Tooth Pillow is restricted to the ages of 3 to 12 right now, because we've built this model of treating remotely, the reality for an adult is we need in-office appointments. We're going to need to have you come to an office. What we're working on at Tooth Pillow is building out a practice locator around the country where doctors do offer adult expansion opportunities. So the adult has 2 categories they can pursue. One is surgical intervention. The other is non-surgical intervention. The non-surgical intervention is like doing jaw growth and development for adults, but with adult expansion type appliances or adult growth appliances. They do exist. It's a very slow pattern of growing the jaws, so you're invested in an amount of time. So the good news is, yes, there are opportunities for adults, either non-surgical or surgical. The offices currently are few and far between, but we're building out a locator for this so that you'll have opportunities to find them.
All right. Doc, give the web address again for parents who are interested in learning more.
Yeah, parents who want to learn more should visit www.toothpillow.com.
We've had a really eye-opening time speaking to the, I guess, one of the driving forces or the driving force behind Tooth Pillow.
Co-founder, one of the co-founders. We got a wonderful team behind the scenes. There's a group of us all doing very nice work.
All right. Well, thank you for finding toothpillow.com, and thanks for being a guest. Our guest has been Dr. Ben Malia. I didn't say that right. Miraglia.
Miraglia, you got it.
Miraglia.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Ben.
Thank you, Jed. Appreciate your time.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Marie Nichols was recently on my Connecticut Book Festival's podcast, and what a delightful woman. One of the things she said really struck home with me. She said, parents nurture with care, siblings are taught to share, but grandparents embrace the dares. We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest is a colorful, fun-filled book where this grandmother dares to embark on a wild journey with her grandson into the dinosaur forest. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on bookshop.org. You and your kids and you and your grandkids are going to love this book. It's We're Going to the Dinosaur Forest, written by Marie Nichols. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Joining us once again from the beautiful state of Maryland, our guest is returning to celebrate her brand new early chapter book. It's called Miriam's Magical Creature Files, The Truth About the Tooth Fairy. Please welcome back to the show, Leah Sipis. Leah,
thank you so much for having me. I'm great.
Delighted to have you on. This sounds like a lot of fun. And certainly usually we're talking about your middle grade novels. Am I right about that?
Yeah, so last time I was here, it was to talk about Braided, the fifth of my Sisters Ever After books, which are fairy tale retellings for ages 8 to 14. And the sixth and last of those books, Sea Swept, is actually coming out in April. But I'm starting this new series before I even end the old series, which as a writer is kind of how you want to do it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. You want to stay busy. Before we jump into this particular series, what is it about writing series that appeals to you so much, other than just, well, this is a great way to keep me busy and selling books?
So, well, the funny thing about that question is that writing series does not appeal to me. I really never set out to write a series. With the Sisters Ever After series, I wrote one book, Thornwood, which was a standalone retelling. And then the publisher said to me, can you write other retellings of other fairy tales? And I said, sure, that sounds like a great idea. But it wasn't a traditional series in the sense that you have the same character going through. It was 6 individual books connected by a theme. And I love that. Now, when it comes to Miriam's Magical Creature Files, I also originally just wrote one book. And like I said, this is for a different age group. So these are called early chapter books. They're for ages 5 to 7. So they're for kids who are, kind of just starting to read. And I really wrote it for my daughter, who was at that age and was losing her tooth. And she kept saying, how much money are you going to give me for your tooth? And I kept saying, it's not me, it's the tooth fairy. And she kept saying, come on, I know it's you. So I really started writing this book for her. And then when I finished it and I looked at what I had, I said, well, this could be really good. I'm going to work on this harder, do some research into what you need to write an early chapter book series, make it as funny as I can. And then I'm going to ask my agent if she thinks she can sell it. And my agent did think she could sell it, and she did sell it. But when it comes to early chapter books, you really need series, because kids who are that age, parents want series for them. And they want to read about the same continuing character. So when I sold it, the editor said, and we would like for this to be a series. So I've already written the second book, which is called A Discovery of Dragons. And it's about the same girls still investigating magical creatures. And the third book is going to be about mermaids. And they're just so much fun to write, though. So I never set out to write a series, but I'm really enjoying this one.
That's great. That's great. One of the things that I learned being the host of Reading with Your Kids, and it really surprised me, is that the writing in early chapter books is, I don't know if I'm going to say the right word, it's simpler, it's easier to read than the writing in picture books, because picture books are designed to be read by an adult.
Yes, that's exactly correct. So when you're writing a picture book, your audience is a child who has an adult reading the book to them. And for an early chapter book, your audience is a child who is, at the beginning of learning how to read, or who knows how to read a little bit. And you want that child to be able to read the book themselves. So it's a very different process. Yeah. And there are different things that you have to keep in mind.
So tell me about Miriam, this character that you created that you're going to be working with for a while.
Yes. So I love her, luckily. So she is the youngest of 3 children. She feels that no one in her family takes her seriously, and that's why they believe that she will, that's why they think they can fool her into thinking there's a tooth fairy, or that there's a dragon at the zoo in book number 2, or all these things, and she is determined to prove them wrong. And one of the fun things I did with this book is at the beginning of each book, she has like a chart, and it's things my family told me that I used to believe and how I found out the truth. And there said things like, it's like things my family told me that I used to believe. Sugar makes you hyper. How I found out the truth. I ate a ton of sugar at a birthday party and I felt completely, totally, 100% amazingly normal. And things like that. So she is, trying to disprove all these things that her family tells her. She has 2 older siblings. She has very busy parents. And she just has a really funny way of looking at the world. So when I wrote these books, I would read them to my daughter and her friends. And every time they laughed, I would highlight whatever they laughed at, so that as I revise, I'm like, don't take that out. And I just, kept going through it, trying to get them to laugh more and more.
What a brilliant strategy to sit down and to read your drafts and make a note of where it's funny and just keep that in there.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, sometimes once I was editing it, so another thing about these books, obviously, is that there's a very strict word limit. So a lot of times as we were editing, my editor would be like, we need to cut this a little bit. What if we cut this? What if we cut that? And I'd just go back to those original notes and I'd tell her, I'd be like, sorry, my daughter and her friends laughed at that. We can't take it
out. I'm just curious, what was the editor's reaction?
She was like, usually she had suggested a few things, so I wouldn't just be like, no. I'd say, can't cut that out. It was too popular with the target audience, I think was the phrase I used. But I would cut out other things because the word limit is real. You have to get to it. So I think she was happy with it.
So tell her what's that? I know for most picture books, the word limit is between 500 and 600 words for
right.
a 2-page book. What's the word limit for an early chapter book?
So for these, the word limit was 7,000 words.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's another difference between picture book. A picture book, an adult is reading it out loud. They don't want to read 7,000 words out loud, but a kid does want to read 7,000 words. Yeah. But also similarly to a picture book, it is illustrated. So another fun thing about these books was that I got to work with an illustrator, and the illustrations are so important that similar to a picture book, both my name and the illustrator's name are on the cover. The illustrator is Sarah Lynn Roll, who happens to be an author and illustrator of her own picture books. But they also pitched her to illustrate these books, and she did, which was amazing because her pictures are also so funny. And so they add so much to the book. So it's a heavily illustrated 7,000 word early chapter book, but it's not a picture book.
I understand. Now, I'm curious. Do you have a list of words that you can use, and not that you're censoring words, but no,
right, they're too complicated. So Writer's Digest a long time ago put out a book called the Children's Word Book, and it has lists of words, and essentially for every word it'll give you simpler versions of that word. I am I used to try to write picture books. I was not very good at writing picture books. Most of the picture books I tried to write didn't get published. But I used that book a lot when trying to write picture books. And it really gave me a sense. I didn't rely on it so heavily for these books specifically, again, because I was reading them to kids. So if there was something they didn't understand, they would just tell me. And then also my editor would sometimes tell me, can we use a simpler word? But I think it really gave me a sense of what kind of words you use. And really, you never want to use a complicated word if a simple word will do.
I'm curious with this early illustrated chapter book. Do you have to leave room for the illustrator to tell part of the story with her illustrations, or is it just icing on the cake?
So it is icing on the cake, but also these books incorporate charts because Miriam is investigating. So she is making lists of clues and she's making lists of plans. And it was actually my editor's idea to have these lists instead of just being bullet points. Those lists are illustrated, so they're on notepaper, and they're covered with pictures. So in that sense, those illustrated lists are an integral part of the book.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember reading books like that when I was a kid almost 100 years ago. But it's really fun. And I'm wondering, have you taken the time to think, obviously, picture books, a lot of joy, a lot of memories, and as an author of a picture book, you're giving a family a chance to make memories that will last forever. As the author of an early chapter book, you might be writing the very first book a kid reads on their own. And what a feeling of accomplishment that kid will have.
Yeah, so I do think about that a lot. I think it's a privilege. And again, I have children of my own, so I very well know, the feeling of going to the library and trying to find them books that they will be interested in reading on their own, and whether they'll want to read the next one, they'll want to read the next one. And that was my goal. I hope my book is that book for many kids. That would be amazing.
And it makes sense that, parents are going to want a series because, like my beautiful wife, I have a birthday coming up, and she knows that the only thing she needs to buy me on Father's Day, my birthday, and Christmas is a new pair of sneakers. Or not. And so with the series of books, it's really fun for a parent to sit there. They don't have to rack their brains. It's like, oh, my kid really loves the Miriam's Magical Creature Files. I'll just get book 2 and book 3, book 4.
I hope many parents say that. Thank you.
Tell me real quick about the new middle grade book that's also coming out.
All right, so that's Sea Swept. So that's one of the Sisters Ever After series, and it's about the Little Mermaid's little sister. So what happens is that, now, of course, in the original Little Mermaid story, the Little Mermaid has sisters, and she's the youngest. In the movie, she doesn't. So I kind of invented a younger sister for her. And in this book, the Little Mermaid has gone onto shore. She's going to marry the prince, but then she vanishes, and no one knows what happened to her. So her little sister, who really never wanted legs, never wanted to have anything to do with humans, really likes it under the sea, but she is forced to now go on land and try to find out what happened to her sister.
Awesome. I really love it. And I can't wait for you to come back to tell us about the next new series that you're creating.
I hope so. I will be in touch.
Remind everybody where they can go to find out more about Miriam's Magical Creature Files, the truth about the Tooth Fairy, and find out more about you.
All right. So my website is leahcypess, leahcypess.com. And I have it well laid out with all my books there at a glance, and each book has a page where you can find out more about it. The publisher for Miriam's Magical Creature Files is Amulet Books for Young Readers. So you can go to their website also. They have a page with, order links and information and all that good stuff.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Miriam's Magical Creature Files, this brand new series from our guest, Leah Cypess. Leah, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. If you did, and if you learned something, please let your friends know about it. Copy and paste the link to this show into your social media pages, letting your friends and followers know all about the show. Also, something else that would really help get the word out about not only about Dr. Ben's tooth pillow, but also about Reading with Your Kids is by writing a review. If you wrote a review of this episode, wherever you find found the episode, that would really be helpful to us. And if you write a review of the podcast in general, again, on whatever podcasting platform you find us on, that would be super helpful, and we really, really appreciate it. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at JedleyMagic on X. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And our website is readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Dr. Ben Miraglia. Please be sure to check out Tooth Pillow. Also want to thank Leah Cypus. Please be sure to check out Miriam's Magical Creature Files, The Truth About the Tooth Fairy. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.